So this is the Battle of the Media Supermen. So what we're going to do, it's going to be kind of a combination of a little serious, because with this bunch, there's no way I'd get them to make that many jokes. But and we're also going to do some fun stuff. So I'm Kelly Harkins. I'm the director of the track, and you'll introduce it.
I'm Henry Hanks. I've been doing panels here for like 20 years, which is hard to believe. But I've been a Superman fan since childhood, like probably a lot of people in this panel and in this room. And I'm also coming out with a podcast, What the Nerd Podcast, in the near future. So what's that?
Hi, I'm John Paul Estes. I might be a Superman fan. I don't know if you can tell phone and everything. Been a Superman fan for many, many years, and on these panels for a few years, thanks to our lovely host over here, panel director, right?
Yep.
Title.
Yes,
Track director.
Fancy
Sorry.
title.
Yes. So I'm just always happy to be here and help whenever I can.
Hey everybody, my name is Rebecca Johnson. I'm a co-host of a podcast called Supergirl Radio. We talk about Supergirl every week, but I also talk about Superman quite a bit because he is Karen's cousin. So I love all the Kryptonians, and I'm excited to talk about all of them. So we'll see how they go.
My name is Michael Bailey. I am a podcaster. I run something I laughingly call the Fortress of Bailey Food Podcasting Network. Three of the shows on the network are Superman related, from Crisis to Crisis, which covers the post-crisis Superman, the Superman and Lois tapes, which surprisingly covers Superman and Lois, and another show I do regularly called It All Comes Back to Superman. I'm also have been a writer and contributor for the Superman homepage for 20 years, and every Monday night we do Superman homepage live on YouTube at 10:30. And I think I like the character, and I'm not sure.
Yeah.
He's on the fence. You're on the fence.
I'm on the fence.
And boy, does it hurt.
I forgot to coordinate for my Superman shirt.
I noticed. I get the sensation.
Yeah.
We get your marker, just go on that side.
That's true. Or we do the Smallville, and you have to just tear it and burn it into your chest. So one of the two.
Marker or scorching, which is more?
So we're gonna kind of, like I said, mix it up a little bit. I will tell you, we are probably mostly gonna focus on the Superman whose actual faces we see. We'll probably touch on some of the cartoons a little bit, but
There's so many in the cartoon.
yeah, but I do have one question that focuses on Lois. So, but let's start off with something simple. Your favorite media Superman?
Obviously a cliche answer, but I gotta go with Christopher Reeves because I grew up with him, so that makes me really biased, I guess. But also, he just embodied the character, and if you've seen the making of the first movie, they looked and looked and looked, and I think they passed on him first, and then they looked at him, and they kind of gave another look at him. So they really did a lot of work to get the right guy, and they found the right guy. So. And he, sadly, had that accident, and he was a big activist and for stem cell research, and passed away early. But he sort of became a Superman type person in real life. So.
Okay. Paul?
All right. Well, for years and years and years, I had one who's hands down my favorite. That's because to me, Superman is not about Superman; it's about Clark Kent. Whereas Bruce Wayne is the mask, and Batman's the real guy. For Superman is the mask, and Clark is who he really is. That's why Smallville is so good. It's about Clark. But George Reeves, to me, had the best Clark Kent for years, until this year. And Tyler Hoechlin has done such an incredible job of blending the two characters and showing how he's always Clark, and even when he's Clark, he's Superman. I've just loved him so much. He might, I can't believe I'm saying it, he might have just inched out George Reeves by just a bit. And just give the quality of the show and everybody on it, because we have such great Lois and the kids and everything.
Rebecca? We'll start with you. We'll change it up after this.
I would say my favorite Superman is Henry Cavill. I, for a long time, had a real beef with Superman because he lied to Lois, he hid who he was. A couple of times he would manipulate Lois and take her memories without her, consent. And real beef with. I love Christopher Reeve, but as a character, I just could not get over that. And so when Henry Cavill showed up and his Superman, is right up front with Lois. Lois tracks him down to his mother's front door, and so they never had that secret identity triangle for two kind of thing. And I like that he sort of struggles with who he is and trying to figure out who and what Superman should be. And so I love his suit. I love the way he looks in the suit. And so I mean, he carries himself. I mean, not even just like a superficial thing, but he carries himself so well. There's a scene in Man of Steel where he's talking with the military. Lois is there, and they're trying to figure out the plan with the Phantom Zone and the military jets. And there's a moment where he's walking towards the camera, and the cape is flowing in the wind, and it's just. That was a moment I was like, oh my gosh, that's Superman. So Henry Cavill for me is just, he takes away all that stuff that I had a problem with Superman and made it better.
So after reading hundreds of comics and watching and listening to radio shows and television shows and movies and animation, up until 2016, the Superman that existed in my head never was made physical. I'm with him. George Reeves is probably one of the closest that comes to what I like to see in Superman. But then in 2016, I'm watching the opening to season 2 of Supergirl, and I see Tyler Hoechlin as Clark Kent. And he sees the thing on the screen, and he gets this look in his eyes. And then we got the first good shirt rip of the 21st century. And I'm literally crying. And I was at a really rough point with Superman at that point, which sounds like we're in a relationship. It's not like that. But I was at a point where I did not feel like in the comics or in the media that what I wanted personally, and this isn't against anybody else, but just what I want personally wasn't being represented. And as I watched those 2 episodes, and I watched him kind of similar to you, when he walked into the DEO and he started shaking everybody's hands, and the way he acted and his sense of humor and just his ease of being around people, and the way he played Clark and the way he played Superman, this was the first time I'd ever seen the Superman in my head made physical. So I'm like you. I'm like, I can't believe I'm saying this because it's so new. But after this last season, yeah, it's Tyler hands down.
It's better than you could have ever expected.
Yeah, it's just.
Well, it's interesting that we all have different ones.
Yeah, there's like 2 or 2. That is interesting. So, all right. So I think that's kind of brings, since I was going to go through this later, but we have 11 Supermen up on our murder board. So hopefully no, we can't actually say that. I would say hopefully none of them murdered, but we actually can't say that. So my question is. We'll hit a dark note before we go to brighter notes. Which one was the worst?
What do we send to the Phantom Zone?
Yes, we will dispose of him off of our murder board.
Just to clarify, the Superboys are up there? Okay.
Yes, the Superboys are up
That will
there.
help me make it.
So, there are 2 Superboys up there currently, so. Let's start, Michael, you are the first victim now.
Can I suggest a rundown of who all the faces are?
Sure. Well, why don't I let my experts chime in here? Anybody want to jump in and recite the order?
Okay, so we've got Kirk Allen, George Reeves. Let me make sure I'm looking at it correctly.
Wait, a Van
It should be most in chronological order.
Okay.
John, can you turn
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't move that easily.
You're right.
It's really heavy.
Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna fake it. Okay, so it's Kirk Allen, George Reeves, Christopher Reeve, John Haynes Newton, Gerard Christopher, Dean Cain, Brandon Routh, Tom Welling, Brandon Routh again, and Henry Cavill, and Tyler Hoechlin.
Yes. So that is the tail line.
All that while drinking
So, if we're going just on judging them as Superman, I go for Dean Cain as the worst. And the reason that is that as great as his Clark Kent was, he never looked comfortable in the suit. And to me, and I want the guy to walk across the screen like he owns it. And Dean Cain never did that for me. So that's my reasoning behind that.
I think that's fair, actually, because Dean Cain, I do love his Clark Kent. I actually was speechless when I met him, which never happens to me. But he didn't really do as good of a job with the secret identity. So he didn't change from Clark Kent to Superman very well, which always made me wonder, well, how did they not know? He's the exact same guy. So I think that's probably fair. I recently watched 2 different episodes of Superboy, trying to do some study on Nick Jaspidowicz. And they were both the 2 different Superboys. And Gerard Christopher, I was like, I cannot believe how bad this acting is. The other Superboy did pretty well, and he carried himself. I think he carried himself better, and I believed who he was. But Gerard Christopher, just acting ability alone, for me, would be the
I can't separate the 2 Superboys. I can't watch the show. I tried. I mean, as much as I love Superman, I cannot watch the Superboy show. They're equally bad to me. So if you watch more than I have, I will support and say Gerard Christopher as well. But they're equally bad for me. But I get what you're saying about Dean Cain. You're right. If you left the boys out and were strictly man, it'd be a tie maybe between Dean Cain and the first appearance of Brandon Routh. Because Brandon Routh is a great actor, but I did not like that version.
I haven't looked very deeply into it, but I wonder if part of Dean Cain's performance was that he was supposed to be a romantic leading man, and maybe that made him a slightly different Superman than what we're usually used to seeing, or a sensitive Superman or something like that. But I think that I have to disagree. I liked Gerard Christopher's Superboy, maybe just like how I saw it at the right time. I watched it when it came out. I liked season 2 of Superboy. I didn't care for the rest of the other seasons. So John Haynes Newton did nothing for me, but again, maybe I'm a little biased, but that's fine. That's before I heard John Haynes Newton, it was like a really tough call.
But you picked different Superboys.
Yeah.
All right. Well, since we're separating, of course, because Dean Cain was in Clark, and you're saying he actually did well as Clark. With that in mind, since I don't want to eliminate him, since you're giving him props for Clark, then if we look at both sides of it. So if we look at Clark and Kal-El, which one do you feel like? And I mean, you all brought up Tyler Hoechlin, how he balances them. But then if you look at which one did the best Clark?
Just best Clark. That's your question?
Yeah, because what I will do is I'll weigh that versus the Superman side.
The best Clark? I really gotta go with probably Reeves again. And he was a little bit, well, he said he was doing Cary Grant a little bit in some ways. He was a little bit, slapsticky, like, oh, I'm gonna lose my glasses and fall over. And I'm very nervous. But I'm terribly biased, I think. I think he was a really good Clark Kent, probably the best.
Okay.
Say again?
That's how he got the part.
No, he was saying George Reeves.
Oh, what did I say?
Yeah,
No,
were
I
you
was
saying
saying
Chris Reeves? Oh, you're saying Christopher
Reeves.
Because you just said Reeves.
He got the part. He got the part by playing Clark.
He did both characters as separate characters. And there's this famous scene where he
Transition. Yeah.
Yes.
So I think he was able to nail them both, but that's what I think.
So that's Clark.
Mm-hmm.
It's so unfair because of the era and the writing and everything else. He's had just a short time. I'm just have to stick with Tyler Hoechlin. I think he's been the best Clark. But if you want somebody who, when he's on screen, his presence commands the screen as Clark Kent, George Reeves still, when he walks on screen in any scene, it was just something about it. He commanded the screen, which you never really thought of in Superman when he had the suit and the hat and everything on. So he still takes second place because he's commanded it so well.
He was the 40s and 50s Superman. He was the Superman of the Silver Age.
Yeah.
So,
He gets extra points for the hat.
yeah. He was the Boy
He
Scout.
can handle that.
He was completely the Boy Scout, black and white, good and bad,
Yeah.
But no conflict there.
But the best rounded for all of it.
Yeah.
I go with Tyler Hoechlin for the Clark part
Right.
too.
That's so hard because part of me wants to say Tom Welling, but I do think Dean Cain, what I liked about Dean Cain's Clark is a lot of the moments with his parents, with Martha and Jonathan, the way he played off Lois, the fact that we saw him investigating a lot and being inside the Daily Planet. Like, that's why I would eliminate Henry Cavill from that. We don't get to see in those films, we don't get to see a lot of Clark doing that kind of thing.
Yes, like Tom Welling never really got to be Superman, but Henry Cavill hasn't really been Clark.
The whole time. I have issues with some of the decisions that Tom Welling's Clark made, so I think that's why I would probably eliminate him for that. So I guess I would say Dean Cain just to narrow it down.
I'm having similar issues as him because George Reeves, especially that first season of The Adventures of Superman, when Phyllis Coates was Lois, there was I have this really love of when Superman just doesn't want to take anybody's crap. It's why the Golden Age Superman is so great, because that's a guy that just would walk into a room and punch somebody in the face and not really think twice about doing so because he felt he had to do it. And the producer of the television show for the first season was the producer of the radio show. And the Clark on the radio show was a very fully formed character. Bud Collyer, yes. So I want to say George Reeves, but again, Tyler was the balance for me because we saw him be Clark in more of the reporter Clark on Supergirl. And there's that scene when we meet Lena for the first time, and he's all tripping in the elevator, and he's got sway, and there's the body double as he's hugging Jimmy because we gotta hide that Tyler is much shorter than Macabre Brooks, and all that was great, but when he turned on a dime and hit her with a question that she wasn't expecting, I was just like, that's Clark. He's disarming you with his kind of mild-mannered, approach, but he's going to hit you with a hardball question. You're not going to know how to answer it because he's lulled you into this false sense of security. So I'm going to have to go with Tyler as well. but George Reeves by a safety over George Reeves.
I have to just give a shout out, like you said, to Bud Collyer, the first one who did the radio and the cartoon, because he invented this saying where he's Clark Kent. This is a job for Superman, and then the voice gets deeper, and he invented that.
That's definitely a radio kind of spot thing. So, all right, well, you guys have made it so it's really hard to eliminate any of them. So, did anybody else want to kind of chime in with their perspective?
I'm a little surprised that we haven't said a word about Kirk Allen, especially when we're talking about
I know.
whom to eliminate.
Yeah,
Because
wanted to mention it.
it's such a different kind of performance. I don't want to just completely write it off because it's 1950, 49 and 50. But also, the way it's performed just doesn't hold a candle to any modern expectations. So to me, that'd be the automatic write-off, but I also don't think it's fair.
I enjoyed the serials, and I just enjoyed them for everything where you're not going to find Academy Award winning performances. And George Reeves, they were both the Golden Silver Age Superman. George Reeves was the better of the two. But it's so hard to, with the sort of, I'm not sure the word I'm looking for, but it's not a nuanced thing, so it's so hard to give it a good performance, and George Reeves gave a good performance, so that's kudos to him. So, yeah. I think he did good with what he had to work with, I guess I'll say.
Any other thoughts then on Kirk Allen?
Yeah, I mean, I got to meet him once when I was a kid.
Wow.
10, 11, 12 years old. That's one of the best things in the world. And still, he had the build and the shake and the friendliness with a little kid who's like, hey, wow. And my dad raised me right. I already knew who he was at that age. But I get exactly what you're saying, because I watched a bunch of those serials. And I could never look to take him off the board. I just couldn't do it. I hadn't met him. But when you compare it to the Adventures of Captain Marvel back in the time, that serial, which was so much better. That's kind of like the gold standard of those serials.
Yeah.
His Superman paled in comparison to Captain Marvel at that time. So I can get what you say, that he could be taken off, because when you compared it to the other one at the time, it wasn't as good.
Yeah, and at that time, Captain Marvel and Superman, if you take away the big bad thing, were the same guys. There was not much difference.
At one point, Captain Marvel was more popular.
Yeah, absolutely. Kirk Allen, for me, I'll take him off the board all day long. Like not even thinking about it. I've watched both of those serials, and I appreciate that literally everybody, including Perry White, gets into a fist fight at some point.
That's what that serials were about.
But
Newspaper men, come.
and yes, there is a little bit of unfair because he was the first. So in a physical realm, instead of what you see in your animation or animated, Kirk Allen was the first, but that sets the tone. And when the tone is deaf, then you're not really, like, this Clark Kent was like always looked like he was surprised to be wherever he was at any given moment. And his Superman just always looked like he was trying way too hard to look impressive. And, you know, it's just funny, though, you mentioned the Captain Marvel serial. Everyone today complains about how violent these things are. Captain Marvel was throwing people off of buildings and machine gunning them.
That's machine guns going on.
Yeah. But no, I'll eliminate Kirk Allen like immediately and not feel someone can sleep over it.
And the serials had Noel O'Neill, who would go on to become a series, so she was probably the longest lived Lois Lane, and definitely has a place in the canon, I guess.
Do you want to add something?
Yeah, would it be safe to say that Kurt Allen is the George Lazenby of Superman?
Yeah.
I'm not sure that's fair to George Lazenby.
Ironically, George Lazenby was on an episode.
If George
of Superboy.
Lazenby had come before Sean Connery.
He was? Well, you always know all that stuff.
Yeah, he played Jor-El. Because he really
That's
wasn't
right.
Jor-El, but him and Britt Eklund, so you had like a Bond and a Bond girl.
Right,
It was kind of weird.
yeah, they were the fake world.
And not even like one of his Bond girls.
And who got an early appearance in the Superboy series was Joaquin Phoenix, his first DC character.
Yes.
All right, so obviously this question is a little tougher, so we'll go to something a little lighter. So, which suit is the best suit?
I mean, hands down, Henry Cavill for me. That's not even. That's
Wait, I didn't say what's in the suit.
No, I'm talking about like the way it's made and the thought that goes behind it. The idea behind that suit is that it's part of Kryptonian culture and part of the way that they wear them. Like he's kind of theoretically wearing his underwear because the armor goes on top of them. So
He was not wearing underwear on the outside. He
yes,
was
no.
It's like Under Armour as opposed to.
But I like the way that it's made. That the fact that like Batman v Superman, they added a Joseph Campbell quote in the Kryptonian script. I think that's really beautiful to tie into the world. And so I think that the way that they put so much thought into Kryptonian culture and tried to tie that into what his suit would look like, and they actually tied that to all the other characters too, like Laura and Jor-El had the same kind of clothing. So for me, the effort that went into it and the actual aesthetic. Michael Wilkinson is a very famous costume designer, and so I think all of the suits that you see now are kind of based off of those early like Man of Steel suits, just because it was so good. So that's it for me.
I'll go ahead and say the worst for me was probably George Reeves, and that was because the cape hung down so low, it was distracting. But and then Christopher Reeve, they were able to cinch it up more. But I would go along with Henry Cavill too, because all the stuff you said, and it definitely stood out. There's a lot of the Superman costumes that kind of look the same. So.
this is where even though I hated Clark Kent, Christopher Reeve, as a kid, and you get to see it in color, the real Superman costume. You believed a man could fly, the whole tagline. They got the costume perfect down to the wrestler trunks. I know we always like to joke, but it was designed after the wrestlers of the day.
There was a whole discussion about the slightest nuance of his costume. I'll just leave it at that. Along with the producers.
I once heard that there was like an authenticity thing that DC Comics had. Is that true that like they had to make it look like the Superman in the comics? Like there was no kind of
Well,
way.
there's different stories I've heard. I've heard that they were gonna change it, and then Christopher Reeve fought to keep it as the classic. What DC Comics had was like kind of a character clause that it had to be treated a certain way. I would vote for the Man of Steel suit if it had something in the middle. And this is my problem. When I first saw that suit, he was crouched against the bank vault. And I loved the cape. The cape was really long. I loved the color of the cape. I like the darker colors of Superman suit. I like a dark red and a dark rich blue. And that's what you had. And this S symbol, I immediately fell in love with, because it's really similar to, in the comics, the Earth 2 Superman had a kind of a similar thing, and that was always my favorite S symbol. And the boots, I mean, it sounds weird, but I was just like, they got the boots right. Like everything looks good. But aesthetically for me, with nothing in the, like, I know they have like the little detailing and stuff, but you don't really see that when he's in motion. I'm gonna go with the Brandon Routh Kingdom Come suit. Mainly because one, I was shocked they did it.
Yeah.
I didn't think they were allowed to. I didn't think they were allowed to put trunks on a character. Which is why the Fleischer suit on Superman and Lois, I was like, you cowards.
But the red trunks were not on the Man of Steel suit. That was one. Yeah, that was bad about it.
But when I saw that suit in that first picture that's over there, it was the first promo, I'm like, oh my God, they did it. They pulled it right from the comic book and put it on the screen, and it looked great. So, and it even had the 3D detailing of like the Superman Returns S, which is way too small. But yeah, that's gonna be my vote.
Interesting votes. Anybody else have insights? Jonathan?
I'd like to nominate the Fleischer-inspired suit that Tyler Hoechlin wore in the Superman and Lois flashbacks.
Yes.
Yeah, that was very classic.
Yeah.
My problem with the Tyler Hoechlin suits, they look good like in a still, but when he's in motion, he looks, and this is not a knock to Tyler Hoechlin because I really like his performance, but he looks like a little kid who went to Party City, and he has the muscles. I'm not even kidding, like sometimes it doesn't fit right. The Fleischer suit looks good, the way they've done the muscles and stuff, it doesn't, it's too loose.
It's because when they're professional, it's modeling.
Well, but I think the costuming could tighten that up and make it in motion look a little better.
Yeah.
Mine is the Brandon Brown, only because that was the last time we saw the red panties, and I really liked it.
So we could get it, the loss of the red panties then, you know. The way you phrased it, I couldn't resist.
Would be good.
So, do we have an issue with losing the trunks? I mean, obviously, John Paul, you do.
Yeah, and the new 52 got rid of the trunks. And they brought
He
it
made
back.
me make them to put over that costume because it didn't have them.
It just visually works better.
I agree.
Oh
Oh
yeah.
Kool-Aid Man had
About the trunks, you know, it's really weird. I've been saying this all weekend. The New 52 started 10 years ago. It does not feel like 10 years ago, and it feels like 30 years ago, all at the same
Rebirth and
time.
the rebirth.
But when they redesigned the suit, it took me like 7 years to really get on board with it, and by that point he was out of it, so it really didn't matter. But the thing about getting rid of the trunks is that there is this really kind of, like, she made the red panties joke, but I didn't take it as like a shot against it. Because usually when people say they need to get rid of the underwear, they're taking a shot against it. And one, it is trunks, but two, there's this, like, when people are making fun of it, there's this, like, haughty, I've cracked the code on how to make fun of this, and I'm the first person, this Marco Polo type thing, that they're the first person to ever make that joke, when people have been literally making that joke since the 40s. And to me, it comes down to design. Now, the new 52 suit, what it had going for it is the red belt in the middle, which broke it up. But the trunks, to me, never went out of style. But I had to go through like 6 years of not complaining about it because I didn't want to be that guy that was complaining because the one that I liked was no longer there, and I'm just going to whine about it on Twitter for the rest of my life. So, but I think that when they brought it back, one, again, I was shocked because DiDio was still in charge, and I didn't think that was ever going to happen. But when they brought it back, I was just like, see, it's classic, because when they did one of you mentioned, I forget who, because I was facing the other way. Someone mentioned Rebirth. If you look at the Rebirth covers, they never show him from the waist down. They hardly ever show him from the waist down. It's always from the waist up to make it look more classic. And to me, it was just like they were trying to go towards the more classic version of the character. They just weren't ready to pull the trigger on that. That's why I think the trunks are important, because they represent kind of a classic feel to the character.
Yeah.
Where I come from, they mean legacy.
I 100% disagree, respectfully. I never need to see the trunks ever again. There's the case that Zack Snyder made, and I wholeheartedly agree with it. The trunks were there because of the strongmen. Superman's look was based off of, like, I don't know, Victorian era strongmen that would have that look. And if you do that, to me, you have to justify why he looks like that. Now, you may be able to, like, suspend your disbelief or whatever, but I think the idea of that is there is a classic feel to it and a look to it, but I don't personally need it anymore, and I think the justification isn't there. So
it's
that's
fan service, but have it.
Yeah. So I think if you really broke it down, there's no technically any reason for the trunks anymore. That's my opinion.
Yeah, question. Say it.
It's not the aesthetic. It breaks. Without it, it looks like you just wear long johns.
Thank you.
Yes.
Long underwear.
It's like, how does he put it on? What happens when he has to use the bathroom? It's like it's just a sock.
They actually figured that out in the Henry Cavill suit.
Thank God.
Because he had that problem on set, so that's been covered. Yeah.
It's a visual break.
It's a lot of glue.
Yeah, it's too much glue. Even with the belt, it's not enough. It's like it looks like clothes that you can put on. It doesn't look, it breaks the monotony of just a streamlined.
I agree.
I actually don't agree with those things. I guess Rebecca, you and I are on those things.
Team trunks versus team no trunks.
I'd also like to say about the Man of Steel costume, it's cool, but it's not Superman.
How so?
It feels off. It feels like it's
Red
similar
boots,
to what in
blue
the
suit,
comics.
red cape, shield, what's not there? I'm just curious.
It's not really, it doesn't feel like Clark Kent's Superman. In the comics, it's very similar to the one that they put John Kent in. But John Kent is not his father, he's a different character. And so to put that costume on Clark Kent's Superman, it's just, that's not Clark Kent, that's not something that fits who he is.
No. I was gonna say, obviously, this is not
We're not gonna resolve this.
yeah, which is fine, because I like the lines of not having the trunks, it's cleaner lines to
I
me,
agree.
but, yeah, that's me, and that's you.
Can I ask a quick question along these lines?
Sure.
So, only because, well, why is it okay for Batman to go from having trunks to being all one color? but not Superman.
Oh, that might
Okay.
get us into a whole nother
I have an answer.
Filling our privilege.
So,
Yeah, that's always,
so here's the thing, and it's the difference between Superman and Batman on a fundamental level. If you look at the 80-plus year history of both characters, pound for pound, by sheer numbers, Superman has been more popular than Batman overall, when you look at the entire history. Superman came out of the gate popular. He had a radio series in 1940. He had the animated features in 1942, two television serials, and the George Reeves series. So for 20 years, and a radio series that ran for over a decade. For 20 years, he was DC's big gun. And they would tweak the costume, but they would never really completely redesign it. So it was in their best interest to keep Superman at a certain look for all that time. Batman struggled, especially in the 50s and early 60s. They were thinking of canceling or killing him at one point. So they made a physical change to his costume. They put the yellow oval on the thing. And then the TV series was popular for 2 years, and then Batman was done as far as popular culture. I assume most of us grew up probably watching Adam West at some point in their childhood. But when you look at Hollywood and popular culture in general, Batman was relegated to being a joke. And it wasn't until the '89 Batman film that his star started to rise.
But as far as
Well,
the comics,
but-
Frank Miller and all that.
Yeah, and as far as the comics, Frank Miller, but they did a physical change with that by reverting him back to the Golden Age outfit. And when they did the '89 outfit and nobody freaked out, it was okay at that point to change Batman's costume with impunity because it was seen as a way to keep him relevant, whereas Superman is seen as having to be the same because that's the tradition. Yeah.
okay.
And I would say Superman is more colorful costume, and so the blue and red is different from
Versus shades of
gray.
I don't want us to get into the Batman
Yeah,
side.
yeah,
I understand why you asked. I
Quick
understand.
question, moving on.
Yeah. So then we'll switch gears again. Which Superman made the best use of any of their powers?
Chris Reeves fixed the Great Wall of China, you know, like.
Oh, hell, he turned the earth balanced.
That's a tough one because like Kryptonian turn time backwards and the magic kiss and all this stuff that's debatable as even something.
Yeah.
So that's
That's not necessarily best use, that's just, obviously was
that's
very
most powerful,
effective.
most powerful. He was godlike by the end of those 3 or 4 movies.
I would say if you take just the first episode of Superman and Lois, you saw flight, super speed, basically into space, freezing in a part of the lake and lifting it and carrying it, to the nuclear reactor, surviving the nuclear reactor, physical fights against other superpowers, and he had the entire range, X-ray vision, everything. You don't normally get all that, especially on a TV show, but you saw the entire range. And the number of times we complain about it on Flash and others when Flash run into a room and, okay, now I need to stop you. Why didn't you stop him when you ran into the room? And Superman so often does the same thing in every show. He's Tyler Hoechlin's version. They've written him to where he does make use of his powers in virtually every instance. Maybe somebody could have an example, but he almost always does what he's supposed to do, what makes sense logically, and they don't have to write the character to be dumb to make the story go forward. So to me, I think that's the best use of the powers.
It's a really tough question because you could look at the portrayal of the powers, the portrayal of Henry Cavill flying, which is like the supersonic jet, and that was really cool, and it differentiated itself from the other one.
Yeah, and I think it's also a matter of budgets too. You're limited on television
Right.
to what you can do. So I guess that also gives you an incentive to be creative, I guess. But for me, Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice is really cool because right when the big Batman and Superman fight, Superman's like picking up manhole covers and just throwing them around, and then you see heat vision and flight. And what really, what I love about him in that movie is the way that, and I haven't seen this in any other media portrayal, is that he will float sometimes just to get out of a space. Like sometimes they'll just walk away or whatever, but in particular, there's a moment where he says goodbye to Lois, and he's about to go, I'm trying to remember where he goes, but it's after the big Batman and Superman fight, and he says goodbye to Lois, and he floats away as he leaves her. And that, to me, if you were Superman, you would do that. Why would you ever walk? so that's like my favorite use of the powers, because it makes sense as to the fact that he can do that. Why wouldn't he do that? So that to me sticks out as like one of the coolest.
So you're saying actually the casual use of his ability?
Yes.
Was
He's
very
not walking
effective.
away. He's not just like flying away. He's just like, he goes up and he floats away, and I just think that's so cool.
Yeah. I also like this Zack Snyder Justice League. We're gonna go with that cut.
That's the only
Him just kicking Steppenwolf's ass was
Literally.
very good display of his powers, heat vision, and he used everything in his arsenal. So I like that scene too.
So, once again, I'm agreeing with the gentleman in the Superman costume, because there is I will not argue that the way some of the powers are portrayed in the Cavill films are not impressive. They are. And actually, I have a similar problem with Superman and Lois that I have with those movies, is I think sometimes the takeoffs and landings are too violent.
You think you should be able to control
Are too violent. When you look, there's a YouTube video out there of somebody who took all of the every version of Superman, changing from Clark to Superman. So you have like a Superboy one, you have Christopher Reeve one, and I was watching the Superboy one, and the landings, especially of John Haynes Newton in the first season, are breathtakingly pretty to watch, because he just comes down gracefully and lands.
And they had no budget.
And they had, but they had the Salk and Wire team.
Yeah.
So, but Hoechlin, I think too often people rely on Superman just punching people or using his heat vision. So when he's fighting Colossus in that one episode, like the second or third episode, and they're in the hotel room, and he comes in and saves Lois, and it's this really great, like, dramatic moment. He starts duking it out with this guy, and he realizes really quick that's not going to work. So he immediately floats up, hits him with his super breath, and then slams him to the ground. And I'm like, finally, on television, I'm seeing somebody who's like using Superman's powers. There was a great episode of Smallville where one of the Taylor boys, or one of the Home Improvement boys.
Oh, Jonathan Taylor.
No, the other one.
Oh, the second one?
Yeah,
he
he had the inhaler with the kryptonite in it.
Yes, okay.
And Jonathan looks at him in that, he goes, they have your strength. They don't have your other powers. And I always love it when they think to use more than one. Though I will say, I was very impressed with the Steppenwolf fight in the Snyder cut of Justice League. But for me, Hoechlin, I think they only do small action scenes, but that's what their budget and their time allows. But they're always impressive. Like when he was barreling through the Kryptonians at the season finale, I was just like, finally, Superman's not getting slammed around. It was just beautiful to watch.
There was another Tyler Hoechlin moment that I thought was really cool in season 1 that I don't see get used very often is he has to find Jordan. He doesn't know where Jordan is, so he flies up into, I don't know if he was in space or not, but he yells out, Jordan! And like Superman's voice is powerful. And so I think that's really cool that he would do that to try to find his son, because his son would be able to hear him. So I thought that was a cool use of his powers.
Never seen that.
Anybody else have their thoughts on it? Of course.
My absolute favorite Superman power moment is actually the least visually exciting, and it's from Man of Steel when he stands up and casually breaks the cups. That is my favorite scene, because that showed, that was just so, that spoke volumes without saying a word. That I'm only, you can, and he said you can control me. And I thought that more than heat vision, more than cold breath, more than calling out his son over Earth, just that casual use of what is, for us, the most restraining thing we can use, meant nothing to him.
And he did it to make everybody on Earth feel better.
To piggyback off you, because I really do think Cavill doesn't get enough credit. I just feel he's always had a bad script. But in Man of Steel, this is something that I think you were touching on, which is flight. You were talking about that, but also the joy he had, the smile he had. That we would all have that if we started flying and never had to, fly a comedy again.
And we were flying, hundreds of miles an hour too.
Yeah, like that's pure joy. That was pure excitement, and that's something that you can rationalize. Okay, this is the first time he's learning that ability. He's getting that, and you have that great voiceover. Versus Reeves, who we had like that jump when he was Superboy. He was running alongside the train, and he was having fun. Then afterwards, he was just total command of his powers when he's fully Superman. And I think I just want to touch on that.
Okay.
So similarly, going with like the less visually impressive moments and hesitantly using one from Justice League, ignoring all the surrounding circumstances, the scene where Barry is running behind Superman and Superman's eyes follow him.
That's
His part is so clear that like he's so beyond
in trouble.
and it was so good.
That was so good.
Yeah, and I wanted to see that was a Zack Snyder thing and not Whedon thing. That was Snyder came up with that.
I want them to like have that scene and then freeze on Flash, and that's when he knew.
I hope he had a diaper.
Well, like in Man of Steel, when we were working that bar, he had a truck driver who was to the waitress, and then he stood to him, and then the truck driver was like, come on, he took a picture, and he stood there. And then all of a sudden when he walked outside, he saw his truck stacked up like a stack of bricks, and that on some telephone pole. Like, you know that was off screen, but I mean, I know Clark must have enjoyed that.
I did like that little bit of revenge at the end of Superman 2. The trucker who had been bullying him, he came back.
The thing about that Man of Steel trucker.
He been working out.
The thing about that Man of Steel trucker though is, wow, does that man have short man syndrome? Because like he stands up and Henry Cavill is like towering over him. And I'm like, okay, dude, like you need to back off now. But when he pushes him and nothing happens, he still acts like he's got the upper hand in this entire situation. Like when he hits him, it's a solid like he hit a brick wall, and Clark's just standing there with beer dripping on him, and like the dude's still like, yep, I'm gonna take this. I got this situation. The people that I hate in that scene are the two army guys that just let it all happen.
Why?
Because their job is to protect people, and that man was sexually harassing the woman.
As a 20-year veteran, I would have loved to see them get their ass, like that guy get his ass.
See, exactly.
I'll add one more, because since we're talking about those little moments, I could make a joke about it and say he had super premonition, the music was about to start, but the moment where Christopher Reeve is first in costume, John Williams' music kicks in, rescues Lois, grabs the helicopter.
Oh, yeah.
To me, that'll always be one of, like, no matter which Superman I like, that little 30-second, 1 minute, whatever segment with the music is the Superman scene to end all
That was
Superman
my
scenes.
mother's.
And
We talked about that for months.
Right. So you get flight, you get strength, you get adjusting it so he didn't kill Lois as he catches her and all that kind of stuff.
And if you're,
What he says is what kicks it too. What he Lois says, but.
Yeah.
He's got money.
and if you're like a filmmaking nerd, that is Richard Donner and his editor just nailing it. Like the editing on that is terrific too.
All right, so since I did not include the cartoons, but we don't want to leave them out. So which was the best Superman voice? And I include the live actions too in this. I'm just saying you can include the cartoons as well.
Just the voice.
The voice. Who had the best Superman voice, as opposed to a Clark voice? Because, like we said, they're often different.
Super Friends.
That was good. That was a good one.
It's a very strong voice, the Super Friends.
Very much, yeah, like Bud Collier.
Yeah.
What about Tim Daly?
I was gonna say Tim Daly. It's my choice, but you have to shout out to Bud Collier being the original.
Yeah, I gotta go with Tim Daly. Just a lot of it,
Even over the live actions too. You have to include the live actions as well.
Oh, I thought you had just the.
I said no. I said you can include all of them.
All of the super voices that have ever voiced.
Okay.
Yes.
All the voices. Oh.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say Michael Bailey because he's done Superman voices on podcasts before.
The cartoon voices just stand out because they that's what they have and they're more authoritative even more than the ones in live action, I think. But Christopher Reeve was his approach to it was a little more casual, like, everyone okay? Okay, I'm Superman, I'm here. Like it wasn't like, hello, I am the Superman. Like, it was very casual the way he spoke.
He didn't change it up really, but George Reeves, again, he just had that kind of classic Hollywood education and style. His voice was just really good. Yeah, his voice was very good. So he probably had the best voice, but Tim Daly for animated would have been what I'd said. Oh man, but I'd go back to George Reeves again. Why not?
If we're including voice actors, I think George Newbern is underrated because I believe he's the Justice League Unlimited Superman, right? Yeah, so I love those shows, and the Superman in that has some really good moments, and I think that he's not talked about enough. So I would probably say George Newbern.
Not that he's going to be my choice, but the reason why I'm going to piggyback on that for a second is that Newbern's Superman had an edge to him that Daly didn't, and it was just the circumstances of who Superman was. Live action, animated, radio, no doubt about it, it's Bud Collier for me, mainly because I've listened to so many of those episodes, and his command of being Clark and being Superman and making them sound different, because they originally were going to cast two actors, and he did it, and Bud Collier did not want to play that part. They had to convince him to audition 3 times. But he had this ability to be kind of jovial, and kind of, high, low tenor for Clark, and then be this baritone, and be sinister in a way for Superman, like the Golden Age Superman should be. He's angry. Now sometimes he says things that did not age well. But it's just the way he would just go after people and be like, I just have to go with Bud Collier.
Yeah. And to think the radio show was only a couple of years after the comics came out.
Mm-hmm.
So as a kid reading the comics, that was the voice you heard in your head reading the comics.
For 10 years, that was Superman.
Yeah.
Anybody want to offer their thoughts on it? No? Okay, go ahead.
I would also go with George Newbern. Speaking to the edge that was mentioned that he has, the moments where he was capable of switching from being heroic and strong Superman to, okay, we have now pushed me past this point and I'm going to show you just exactly what it is you could be dealing with. For the World of Cardboard speech from Justice League Unlimited, or his performance in Superman vs. the Elite, when he decided to play into the idea that the Elite were correct and violence was the answer. Those more sinister moments before leading back into stronger heroic Superman, it's depth of character that I feel like you don't get too often in just voice performances. I will always hold up to Tim Daly and a whole bunch of the other voices too, but I think there was just a level of nuance in that you don't get from the more modern performances. So I'm a fan of George Reeves.
That's some interesting insights. All right, so we are almost out of time. So I have one other question. So with that in mind, of course, Superman has always kind of been, in a simplistic way, kind of the Boy Scout of all the heroes. So which one, as a whole, epitomized that best Boy Scout persona?
Yeah, George Reeves, yeah. I would have to say. It's funny, they literally call him a Boy Scout in Superman 4, Mr. Reeves. I think that's a bit of a shot at him or whatever. But no, yeah, George Reeves, he epitomized that Superman.
That's one I haven't thought about. Which one was more in character, the Boy Scout version?
From that with that mentality, yes.
Yeah. If you take off screen to some degree as well, I would go George Reeves. On screen, more Christopher Reeve. But there's a scene in Hollywood Land where George Reeves is sitting in a diner upset about being typecast, all this kind of stuff, and he sees kids outside the window recognizing the Superman. And no matter how upset he is about it, he stands up and gives them the Superman pose. And he knew how to be for kids Superman. I mean, he was on I Love Lucy and all the rest. But in character, in the stories, in the movies, Christopher Reeve probably.
And yeah, George Reeves covered in the movie. That was a blessing and a curse for him.
As far as the Big Blue Boy Scout, I think Christopher Reeve would be for me. He literally saves cats from trees. So I think for that interpretation, he really was helping people on a personal level. And so I think for me it would be Christopher Reeve.
We even got a cat out of a tree.
Yes.
It's hard to decide between the Reeve and the Reeves, because especially as you go on into the Adventures of Superman television series, it got more kiddified. So he was, doing more like non-overly aggressive things, but.
I think that Superman didn't really need to concern himself with like a lot smaller crimes and stuff.
But Christopher Reeve had, and you mentioned it, the saving the cat, people poke fun at that, but to me, that was him trying to set people at ease. I'm not here to hurt you. Tyler had that great speech in the season finale of Superman and Lois that I think, we didn't need in 1978, because even though we were a more cynical age, we weren't at that type of cynical yet. And just him, even stopping the cat burglar that's climbing up the building, he's messing with the guy.
Yes.
But he was never going to let him get hurt. And just sitting there and giving the cat over, and there's an extension to that scene in the 3-hour version.
Yes.
Where the girl's like, that stupid cat. He's like, hey now, wait a second. And he takes the second to go, everybody gets scared. And it seems sappy, but again, if you can throw a truck and fly, freeze somebody solid just by blowing on them and burn them at the same time to death with your eyes, you kind of want people to be chill around you. And so if you show them, this is who I am, it might set them more at ease. So yeah, I would definitely say Christopher Reeve.
Yeah, there's a line at the end of the first Superman where Jimmy Olsen says, I think he has he cares a whole lot about you, Lois. He goes, oh, Superman cares about everybody. And they kind of showed that with the cat and everything.
Okay. All right. Well, we are really out of time. I was going to throw one more out and include everybody in. But unfortunately, it is actually 9:30. So if everybody wants to give their socials or anything like that, where to find you again?
And Hanks TV and
My place to find me is if she puts me on more panels. So that's about it.
You got some panels with me tomorrow.
There you go.
You can find me at supergirlradio.com, where We're also on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Supergirl Radio. And we're on YouTube at DCTV Podcasts with an S. We do video live streams every Tuesday or Wednesday night. So definitely check us out.
www.fortressofbaileycube.com. I've got cards up here. On Twitter, I'm at Bailey's Podcasts. Warning, political content be there. So if that's not your thing, you may want to not follow me, but I normally just talk about silly stuff in comic books, so yeah.
And don't forget to rate us in the app if
Yes.
you want more panels like this. It really helps me to know. Trying to do some different things this year with more theme stuff. So it really helps me to get a sense to plan for next year. So we'll see what happens, especially with the new Batman coming. So yeah. But yeah, so then we can go into this.
And Michael B. Jordan is going to do an African American Superman, or that Kryptonian, I don't know. Yeah.
We're technically done, but sure. You want to?
Just really quick, who's Superman's greatest villain? Lex Luthor or Warner Brothers?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I mean, Lex Luthor just wanted to kill it.
Warner Brothers kind of has sometimes.
Yeah, but it seems like more malevolent.
Yeah, it's definitely.
Yeah, selling out or murder. All right. Thank you, everybody.